So by early 2026, the average American household owes about $105,000 in debt.
And literally half the country is living paycheck to paycheck, including people making over 500,000 a year. Like, how is that even possible?
Right? Meanwhile, you look at Japan, stagnant wages for 3 decades, zero interest rates, and their household savings rate is, wait, let me get this right, it's sitting at 39%.
Okay, I need a second. 39%? We're at what, like 4%?
Exactly. And what nobody admits is that the gap isn't income. It's not about working harder or, chasing the next hot stock. It's structure.
Which is exactly what we are breaking down today. 12 specific, incredibly boring but highly effective habits to bulletproof your family's finances without earning a penny more. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Frank. Welcome to Talk and Wonder. We create easy-to-understand whiteboard animations covering family finance, investing, passive income, and debt management. Our goal is to break down complex financial topics, help you avoid traps, and build wealth together. If you want to secure your future, you are exactly in the right place.
Okay, so let's get into it. Where does this 39% savings rate actually come from? Because it's not magic.
It's really not. Have you ever heard of the rule in Okinawa, Hara Hachi Bu?
The food thing, eat until you're 80% full, right?
Exactly. Centenarians swear by it. But apply that concept to a family budget. The vast majority of American budgets are designed to consume literally 100% of available income.
Well, yeah, rent, groceries, our kids' stuff, lifestyle just miraculously expands to match whatever you bring home.
God, yes. So one medical bill or one car repair triggers immediate credit card debt. But the Hara Hachi Bu version of budgeting, it deliberately caps at 80%. So if you bring home, say, $6,000 a month, your entire life is built around $4,800.
Wait, so the other 1,200 is just, what, invisible?
Exactly. It moves to savings or brokerage account the second the paycheck hits. It never even enters the spending decision in the first place.
Which is so much smarter than saying, we'll save whatever is left over, because, spoiler alert, there is never anything left over.
Fair point. The behavioral difference is everything. But I know what you're thinking. Capping it is great in theory, but
But how do you actually stop yourself in the moment? I mean, 11 p.m., you're exhausted, the kids are finally asleep, and the Amazon app is right there. One tap and boom.
right, and that is where the friction has to happen. That's habit number 2, the Kakeibo 4-question audit. But you have to do it before the purchase.
4 questions? Like, mentally?
No, physically. You actually write down with a physical pen.
A pen. Frank, who uses a pen in 2026?
That's exactly why it works. The slower neural processing of handwriting, it engages your working memory. So you write, how much money do I have? How much do I want to save? How much am I about to spend? And how will this make my life genuinely better?
Okay, wow. If I had to physically sit at the kitchen counter and write down why I was buying that, what was it, that $140 espresso accessory?
The one we used literally twice?
Let's not talk about that. But seriously, if I had to write that down, the purchase would just die right there on the paper.
And that gap, that tiny gap between impulse and the one-tap checkout, that's where wealth quietly accumulates. But stopping an impulse buy on Amazon is one thing. What most families don't realize is how much they are secretly bleeding from.
Well, this entire culture of treat yourself. I mean, it is literally everywhere. You had a hard day, buy the shoes. You're tired, order the $40 takeout.
Exactly. And the Japanese have a direct counter to that. It's this concept called gaman. It translates roughly to perseverance or patience. In their culture, wanting something and not buying it right away isn't deprivation. It's actually a sign of maturity.
Okay, but practically speaking, how does a modern American family actually do that without feeling miserable?
You use the 30-day rule. It's brutal, but it works. For any non-essential purchase over, let's say, $200, you impose a mandatory 30-day waiting period, no exceptions.
Oh, so you just add it to a list, write the date, and walk away.
Right. And behavioral research shows that the vast majority of those impulses, they just die on their own within 2 weeks. The neural reward circuit that was screaming, buy it now on day one.
Completely goes dark by day 21.
Exactly. Your 30-day list literally becomes a graveyard of cravings. And here's the math. A family doing this usually eliminates about 15 to 20 big impulse buys a year. That is, wait, let me think. That's $3,000 to $4,000 annually that just never leaves your checking account.
And it prevents our garage from filling up with, stuff like that. What was it? The expensive sourdough bread making kit I bought during the pandemic?
Yeah, let's leave the sourdough kit out of this. But that actually leads perfectly into the stuff we already own, because the way we treat our belongings it's a massive wealth leak.
You mean replacing things instead of fixing them, which, let's be honest, we all do. A chair leg breaks, trash it. Phone battery gets weak after 2 years, time for a $1,000 upgrade.
Right, but the Japanese principle of motenai, it treats waste as genuinely shameful. It's the idea that every object is a long-term asset. So instead of buying a new winter coat for $400, you pay a tailor $30 to fix the tear.
Or getting the dining table refinished instead of dumping it on the curb, which makes sense, but Frank, repairing stuff takes time. It's inconvenient.
It is, but look at the numbers. The average family throws away $1,800 a year on clothes alone, mostly fast fashion, plus another $1,500 on wasted food. If you repair appliances, resole your boots, fix the laptop battery, you are repairing things at maybe 30% of their replacement cost.
So how much does that actually save a family?
Across a decade, about $15,000 to $25,000.
Okay, that's a lot.
It gets better. If you invest that saved money at conservative market returns from age 35 to 65, it becomes well over $100,000.
Frank, stop. Wait, are you serious right now? Over $100,000 just from fixing the washing machine and not buying fast fashion?
The math is unforgiving in the best possible way. The visible cost is the $120 repair receipt. The invisible cost is the $100,000 you lost by throwing the old one away. But you know what's even crazier? What happens when a family actually tries to sit down and budget for all this? Because most couples, they start a strict budget on January 1st, and by what, week 3?
Week 3, the car needs a new alternator or the dog swallows a sock, and the budget is it's trash. So you quit. I mean, we literally did this. The logic was impeccable. Well, we failed January. Might as well try again next year.
We did, but that's exactly the trap. American budgeting is built on perfectionism. The Japanese philosophy of Wabi-Sabi,
Which is finding beauty in imperfection, right? Like that pottery repaired with gold lacquer.
exactly. Now apply that to your money. A budget that hits 80% of its targets isn't a failure, it's working correctly. The cracks are part of the system, because a household that runs an imperfect budget for 10 years
Is going to quietly crush the household that runs 3 perfect months and then gives up. Sustainability beats intensity. But you still have to track it, right? Otherwise, you just drift.
Right, which brings us to Hansei, structured self-reflection. The first Sunday of every month, you sit down with your bank statements, and you apply this other Zen concept, Shoshin, which means beginner's mind.
Wait, beginner's mind? Like looking at your own credit card statement and pretending you've never seen it before?
Literally, yes, especially for the invisible stuff like subscriptions. You look at that $15 cloud storage or the gym membership and ask, if I weren't already paying for this, would I sign up for it today knowing what I know now?
Oh, that is so good, because those free trials that quietly rolled over into paid memberships, like, 18 months ago, they just bleed you dry on autopilot.
It's brutal. Empower's latest data shows the average family is carrying about $273 a month in active subscriptions.
Wait, what? $273? Every single month?
Yeah, that is over $3,200 a year. But actually, the most revealing part of this monthly audit isn't even the subscriptions. It's asking yourself one specific, really uncomfortable question. Where did I spend money this month out of stress, boredom or social pressure?
Oh, God, that hits hard because the honest answer to that usually points to those little pick-me-ups, right? The extra rounds of drinks with coworkers because you felt awkward saying no, or the targeted Instagram ads you clicked after a bad day at work. And the crazy part is, the tech companies know exactly how vulnerable we are in those moments, which is why they designed the actual checkout process to be
Frictionless. I mean, the whole point of Apple Pay, one-click checkout.
Is tap and go. You don't even feel like you're spending real money. It just feels like points in a video game.
Exactly, but the friction was the very thing protecting us. Research from MIT shows that physically handing over cash, like actually watching your wallet get thinner, it produces measurably less spending. So, habit number 8, cash-first spending for high-velocity categories.
High velocity? You mean like what? Gas and groceries?
No, the stuff that drains you $15 at a time. Restaurants, coffee bars, quick convenience store runs. You withdraw a fixed amount of cash every Sunday, let's say $200. You put it in a physical envelope.
And when it's gone, the cafe is officially closed for the week?
Literally closed. And the week doesn't end in disaster, you know? You just have a slightly leaner Friday. People usually cut their restaurant spending by 30 to 40% in 2 months just by doing this, because your wallet, it makes the willpower decision for you.
Which is a huge relief, honestly. Decision fatigue is real, but you know what's even harder to say no to than a latte?
What's that?
Other people. I mean, social pressure. Seeing your friends on Instagram remodeling their kitchens or taking these massive luxury vacations. It makes you feel like you're falling behind, even if you make good money.
Right, the classic keeping up with the Joneses. Goldman Sachs actually cited that as a primary driver for high earners living paycheck to paycheck in their latest report. But in rural Japan, they had this brilliant defense mechanism. It's called Tanamoshi.
Wait, isn't that the thing where the village pools their money together?
Historically, yes, but the 2026 American version is strictly about social accountability. You find 3 or 4 trusted friends, and once a month, you share a private spreadsheet.
Oh, wow. Sharing your actual numbers? Like salary and everything?
Close. Net worth, savings rate, total debt, and, this is the most important part, one financial mistake you made that month.
Okay, I need a second. Frank, most people would rather talk about their deepest, darkest secrets than admit they carry like $10,000 in credit card debt to their friends.
True, but that is exactly why it works. The shame of skipping a month or having to admit to your circle that you blew your budget on something dumb, it's more effective than any budgeting app.
Because it replaces fake social media numbers with structured truth. You realize, oh, my friend Sarah, who drives the brand new Tesla, she's actually drowning in a 12% auto loan. It completely breaks the illusion.
Exactly. A 45-minute monthly chat with 3 honest friends, it often outperforms expensive financial advisors. It protects your mindset. But even with the perfect mindset and all this saved money, you still have to put the money somewhere, right? Which brings us to how most people completely destroy their wealth when they finally start. Investing, because they skip the boring stuff. In Japanese martial arts, there's this concept called shu-ha-ri.
Follow, break, transcend, right? Like stages of mastery.
Exactly. But American retail investors in 2026, they jump straight to the transcend stage. They've never owned a single index fund in their life, but they're out here trading, leveraged crypto tokens and options.
While having literally zero emergency savings. I mean, the math doesn't math.
It really doesn't. Shu, the first stage, means you pick one broad market index fund, you contribute automatically from every paycheck, and you read zero financial news for 3 years.
The boring path, but the boring path is what actually works. Speaking of boring but incredibly effective, the 1% rule. Kaizen, because trying to jump your savings rate from like 5% to 15% overnight
is a disaster. You'll feel totally deprived and quit in 90 days.
Right, but Kaizen is just continuous, tiny improvements. You increase your savings rate by exactly 1% a year, which you don't even notice because it just hides inside your regular annual raise. Year 1 is 6%, year 2 is 7%.
And by year 10, you were saving 15%. Your lifestyle never felt reduced. It's purely mechanical. You set a calendar reminder for January 1st, log in, bump the contribution by 1%, and log out. Takes 90 seconds.
It's crazy how the smallest habits do the heaviest lifting. But Frank, I think the final concept is the one that really changes the whole filter, because none of this matters if you're only thinking about the next 30 days. In Japan, they evaluate major financial decisions on a 50-year horizon?
Yeah, generational stewardship. Family businesses in Kyoto, they plan across centuries. They don't see wealth as a personal high score. It's a stewardship. You hold it in trust.
Which reframes literally every line item in your budget. A car purchase isn't, can I get approved for this monthly payment? It's, does this align with the financial legacy I want to leave at 70?
Exactly. The cheaper house quietly becomes the obvious choice. The estate plan gets done in the first year of marriage, not delayed for 30 decades.
Because the future generations become real people to you, not just abstractions.
Right. But look, here is the really uncomfortable truth about everything we just talked about today. All 12 of these habits, Kakeibo, the 80% rule, Kaizen, they're basically rocket fuel.
But rocket fuel doesn't help if the engine is already flooded.
Exactly. These habits assume you haven't already walked right into the massive, predictable financial traps that derail people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Like the lifestyle creep trap or the helicopter parenting money trap.
Yeah, you can master all the Japanese restraint in the world, but if you're secretly drowning because of one specific trap you fell into at age 28 and never addressed,
The math is still going to crush you.
it will, which is precisely why before you try to implement any of these 12 habits, you have to diagnose which decade's trap you are currently stuck in, because the student loan trap in your 20s looks completely different from the trap waiting for you in your 40s.